Roger, thank you so much for speaking with us here today. So give our viewers an update at what's going on at Quinsam and perhaps some of the recent investments that you've made.
Sure. Well, Quinsam is an investment company listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange. We've got about $40 million invested in the cannabis sector. We invest primarily in relatively early stage companies, many private companies. We have exposure in a very large way to the United States. We've also got investments in Israel, Uruguay, Colombia, Jamaica, and of course Canada. So what we offer investors is a diversified group of early stage companies across all aspects of the cannabis investment spectrum.
And you've recently made a number of investments over the past month or so. What was it about these particular companies that caught your eye, and why did you invest in these?
Well, some of the larger investments that we've made recently have been focused on the United States. We really like the valuations in the United States relative to Canada. They're much lower. We like some of the developments we're seeing on the legislative side. We think there's going to be a loosening of legislation in the United States on an ongoing basis over the next few years, and we think as that happens, the valuations in the United States will increase very significantly. So a couple of the larger investments that we've made recently in the United States. One is C21 Investments, which should be trading on the CSE in the coming weeks. It's involved in Oregon and Maine. We've also made a large investment in a company called Flourish. Flourish is affiliated with the very well-known Harborside dispensaries in California. They're market leaders and thought leaders in the cannabis space in California. We think that's going to be a very interesting investment for us. We also made a large investment in a company called Acreage Holdings. Acreage Holdings is based in New York. It is, we think, one of the largest operators in the United States. It's hard to know because many of these companies are private, but it's involved in over 20 states, a very professional management team, and we think it will be doing a listing in the Canadian markets later in 2018.
Roger, if I'm an investor in this space, am I too late? Have I missed the opening or the window for cannabis investment?
Well, I think that depends on what aspects of the cannabis investment spectrum you're looking at. Certainly for the large Canadian cultivators, the Cannabis, the Auroras of the world, the kind of upside we've seen in the past, it just mathematically can't be there. The valuations now at multiple billions, they can't get the same percentage gains that we've seen in the past. So for us, the large Canadian plays, we think it is too late to get the kinds of gains we're looking for. We think in the United States the valuations are still very modest. They're kinds of valuations that we saw in Canada 2 and 3 and 4 years ago. The other thing that we like about the United States and some other aspects of the market in Canada are the securities that you can get. So we are buying a lot of convertible debentures. We get a lot of double equity exposure where we'll have a convertible debenture, plus we will on top of that have warrants that give us double the upside with the downside protection at the same time.
And do you have any sort of final insights into why should we invest in the cannabis space, or any advice into an investor who's looking into investing in cannabis for the first time?
Well, I think the reason to invest in cannabis is that we are at we think, the very early stages of growth in a very large potential industry. Like for us, we think it's a virtual certainty that there is a market for cannabis products. So the only real question relates to the legalization for us. If the legalization comes, there will be, we think, a very large industry with very large valuations. So the risk factor is an unusual one for investors to deal with because it is inherently not easy to predict how legalization will unfold. That being said, we think that it's becoming a trend with so much momentum that the clock will not get turned back. We think there will be ongoing loosening of legislation in Canada, in the United States on a state-by-state basis, and perhaps federally at some point as well.
It's an exciting time for the industry. Thanks so much for your thoughts, Roger.
Thanks very much.